I love it when fairy tales turn tropes on their heads, and there are surprisingly centuries of doing this, and dang, are these stories creepy cool. We're not waiting around to be saved by some prince who is maybe a catfishing rainbow. Oh no. In this tale, a princess and her cat and dog brave death and the wrath of the fairies to save him. And because it's a fairy tale pre-grimified, it's full of saucy, salacious details fit for the salon, and sleeping prince beauties, and mythological references galore. Oh, it's still brutal, but there are just so many delightful details in this twisted conte de fées, so let's dive right in. Once upon a tale as old as time, there was a king and a queen who were desperate for children, but had none. When at last the queen finally gives birth to the most beautiful baby girl the king has ever seen, His Royal Highness can simply not think of a better name for this miracle babe than, quote, fairer than a fairy. I mean, did he try though? Great imagination, Dad, that so rolls off the tongue. Appalled by this choice of a name, because it's certainly a choice, the fairies cannot abide the audacity of this guy to name his beautiful daughter fairer than them. And what's worse, that this little princess actually grows to be drop-dead gorgeous without fairy assistance. Some cool notes that in these types of fairy tales it was customary for parents, especially royal ones, to beseech the fairies to bestow gifts upon their infant children. Think like Sleeping Beauty and similar. Gifts like kindness, patience, wisdom, and beauty. It gives the fairies a chance to meddle in the human affairs, and there's a certain balance between the mortal and the fae. However, in this tale, the royal couple clearly does not ask the fairies for anything, and their daughter is more beautiful than any fae-enchanted princess, which is a huge slight to the fairies. This stings so much that the fairies resolve to, quote, gain possession of her, and either to torment her cruelly or at least conceal her from the eyes of all men. They recruit probably the oldest fairy, Legree, to extract their revenge on this princess for being so beautiful and so presumptuously named. This fairy is neither kind nor generous, of course, and in this drawing kind of looks like the inspo for Studio Ghibli ladies. Now, here's the thing about Legree. Not only can she hold quite the grudge, but she's so old and ancient that she only has one tooth left in her mouth and one eye left in her wrinkled face. Each night she has to soak them in a strengthening potion. More on that later. But my oh my, are poor Fairerthanafairy's days numbered. To the number 7, in fact, which is how old Fairer is when Legree kidnaps her. Another story goes into more detail about how this is accomplished, but we've got a lot to cover in just this one. After an hour of underground travel, Fairer finds herself prisoner in a splendid palace with the most beautiful gardens. And what's even better is, her pet cat and dog followed her, so she's not alone. But she's still a prisoner in a fancy room, so she has tasks to do. First, and most important, never let the fire go out. Easy enough. And second, Legree gives Fairer 2 glass vials to keep a close watch on. One contains Legree's only tooth and the other her only eye. Why she's giving these essential bits to Fairer is strange to me, but these tasks in particular may have some roots in mythology and ancient Roman culture. Then, beautiful young girls from free families were chosen for the privilege to serve the goddess Vesta, from the Greek goddess Hestia of the hearth and home, for 30-year terms. Known as Vestal Virgins, their service included being chaste, tending to Vesta's hearth. If it went out, the girl holding watch would be beaten fiercely, and carrying water from the sacred spring in very awkward containers that, if they were set down, would certainly spill. I do not know if Legree's bottles would spill if not held by hand, but Fairer having to make sure the fire never goes out and mind the bottles, and being a small, gorgeous child the same age as the Vestal Virgins were usually chosen, some say between 6 and 10 years old, really does strike a mythological and historical chord. What's more, remember how Fairer had to descend underground hours to reach this palace prison in the first place? Well, if, let's say, a Vestal Virgin took a lover, she would be punished in a very unusual way. She would be brought to an elegant chamber underground, descend into it, and then the door would be shut, the stairs dismantled, and the entrance filled in with dirt. Basically, a living burial with a very stylish sitting room to wait in for it. Just like Fairer in a very pretty palace underground, with extremely Vestal tasks. Oh, and the Vestal's lover would be publicly beaten and offed, in case you wanted to know what happened to them. But other than these seemingly easy jobs, the princess is free to explore, and over the next several years, she gets used to her lonely life, so much so that she even forgets her father, the king, and that she is a princess. But she's not alone for long because one day, a rainbow starts to talk to her. And no, she's not losing it, for you see, there's a water basin in the garden and the sun hits it just right to make a rainbow that talks. Okay, it's a stretch, but anyway, its voice is that of a young man, and its sweetness of tone and the agreeable things that it uttered led her on to infer that its owner must be equally charming. What sweet agreeable things is this light refraction saying? Well, it informs Fairer that he is young and the son of a powerful king, and that treacherous Legree had a grudge against his father and kept this Prince Rainbow from his true form out of spite for all these years. And he no longer yearns for freedom now that he has seen and learned to love Fairerthanafairy. Yikes, but that's really fast to love. And also, how does he see her if he's a rainbow without eyes? Scrying, sure, and I guess roll with it, but truly told Prisma Man could be anyone of any age, so Fairer better play it cautiously. She does not, but there's only so much trouble that you can get into with a flirty bit of scattered sunlight, right? But it's love at first words with this potential princey catfishing rainbow, and Fairer takes every opportunity to visit the bowl of water in the garden. The issue with this, of course, is that the lovers can only meet when the sun is out, not at night, not in bad weather, etc. Their conversations are so absorbing that one day Fairer forgets to tend the fire, task number 1. It goes out, and Legree is swift to punish Fairer in a cruel way. She must go at dawn to ask Locrinos, a terrible, cruel monster who devoured everyone he came across and especially enjoyed a chance of catching and eating any young girls, for fire. She obeys Legree with all sweetness, only regretting that she won't be able to say her final farewell before certain death to Prince Rainbow, because the sun won't be out to form rays before she leaves. So Fairer sets off alone through the dark forest, and eventually, as all princesses must have this power, she hears a bird song that advises her to pick up a shiny pebble by the fountain. Armed with this pretty rock, Fairer steels herself to enter Locrinos' abode, only to find he is out, but his wife is in, and she's just so taken with Fairer's youth, beauty, and sweet manners that she just gives her some fire. And she trades that shiny pebble for another one that, quote, might prove useful one day. And it will, so file it away. Then she sends her along no worse for the wear. Legree is miffed that Fairer survived. But again, like the evil stepmother in Snow White, why leave important things to chance? Not that I'm condoning any of this, but why hatch elaborate plans and then just not see them through? Anyway, Fairer, likely hopped up on adrenaline, can't wait to tell her Prince Rainbow all about her travels. Rainbow steals her thunder when he says that he's already been told all about them by a fairy who protects him and to whom he is related. Spoil sport? Also, cool, he's part fairy too, which would explain the talking rainbow bit. But isn't Fairer sick of fairies yet? Anyway, Fairy Prince Buzzkill truly does love Fairer and can't stand to put her in any more danger by distracting her from her 2 tasks. So he devises a way for them to talk in her bedroom, where she can keep a close eye on the fire and the 2 bottles. Every evening, Fairer fills up the basin and waits for the sunlight to hit it and Prince Rainbow to materialize. They spend every hour of sunshine talking and flirting and getting to know each other. But of course, all good things must come to an end, and one day Prince Rainbow appears in the depths of woe. He's just heard word that he's about to be banished from here and has no idea where he's to be taken. The Forgotten Princess and Prison Prince despair together until the sun disappears beyond the horizon. And then, of course, the next day it's dark and stormy, so their rendezvous is impossible. But that doesn't mean Fairer isn't weather watching like a hawk. The second the sun looks like it's about to peek over the clouds, she sprints to the water basin and knocks it over. Her hopes of seeing her prince one last time are dashed. Well, splashed, because apparently she doesn't keep any other water around the room. But wait, those 2 tooth and eye bottles have liquid. So she dumps those into the basin, Legree's wrath be hammed, and the lovers have the most desperate, ardent, and rushed conversation they've had to date. The prince begs Fairer to consent to their marriage as soon as they should both be free. She vows she shall have no other husband and is willing to brave death in order to rejoin him. So romantic, if rushed, but congrats on the unofficial engagement, you 2. Fairer knows her time is limited before Legree punishes her for breaking the eye and tooth bottles, so wasting none of it, she gathers her dog, her cat, the stone that Locrinos' wife traded her, and a sprig of myrtle. Why a sprig of myrtle? Sure, it's useful in teas. Consult a healthcare professional before consuming, and it plays into our story. But myrtle has long been associated with luck, love, family, and innocence, all of which Fairer is and is hoping for on her quest. Myrtle is associated with the goddess Aphrodite of beauty and love, and who is probably fairer than the fairies, so would be a good patron to Fair. When Roman goddess Venus rose out of the sea, it's said that she was holding a sprig of myrtle. In order to cover herself from the eyes of mortals, because of course she was in the buff, she crafted clothes out of nearby myrtle trees to protect her innocence. Anyway, Fair takes a sprig of this and tries to outrun the revenge-crazed Legree. But a mortal can only run for so long before needing to rest, and Fair puts the shiny pebble to use right away. Because of course, it's really a magical rock that grows into a stone cave around Fair, the dog, and cat. When Legree swoops in, now equipped with her one eye and tooth, all the better to see and bite Fair with, the little dog barks and gnashes at the old fairy with its teeth. She stumbles back against the cave corner and breaks off her only tooth, poor old dear. Well, if she weren't so mean. While Legree is raging in pain and vanity, Fair books it again, adrenaline keeping her legs moving until she drops from exhaustion. As she does, the myrtle sprig touches the ground and springs up into a green shady bower, covering the trio and offering a little security for sleep. It's a really good thing Fair brought her animal familiars with her, because it's the cat that spies toothless Legree coming in hot this time. It leaps off a high bough of the myrtle tree and flies at Legree, ripping out her only remaining eye, Coraline of the Mother versus cat style. Now well and truly blind, without her Gorgon-type eye, Legree can no longer pursue Fair, who is about to die anyway from hunger and thirst and is on death's door when she sees an actual door on an adorable green and white cottage in the distance. She crawls and drags herself to the threshold, where a beautiful lady dressed in green and white to match the house naturally greets her most warmly. The lady also feeds Fair, offers her lodging, and tells her that after many troubles, she should finally attain her desire. Great, like this poor forgotten princess hasn't already been through enough. She also gives her a nut, which Fair is only to open, quote, in the most urgent need. She continues on her quest and finds herself at a cute little green and white cottage, and no, she's not going in circles. This green and white bedecked lady gives Fairest a pomegranate to use in the most urgent need. She takes leave of this second house, and because this is a fairy tale and is brought to you by the number 3, Fair finds herself at a third green and white cottage with the third green and white clad lady who begs Fair to not give up. What's the deal with these ladies? They kinda seem like the 3 fates of mythology, which tracks with their story so far, spinning mortals' lives out and cutting them short or aiding them as they deem fit. In this story, you may have guessed that of course they are sisters who have fairy powers, but rather than hurt mortals like that nasty bitter Legree, their mission is to help them. This last fairy gives Fair a crystal smelling bottle, again for use in the most urgent need. Got it! The girl and her pets travel through a sweet-smelling forest, and it's here where she sees what has to be the most comfortable palace ever to exist. It's suspended by large, strong silver chains from the 4 tallest trees, and even the slightest breeze sways it so that anyone would be lulled into the most pleasant of sleeps. Yes, please, my insomniatic mind would love this. Anyway, Fair is certain that her quest is leading her inside. The only issue is this castle is hanging off the forest floor, and what's more inconvenient, there are no doors nor windows anywhere near her climbing height. Desperate times call for urgent measures, and so Fair decides that the time is nigh to crack open that nut. Out pops the most diminutive hall porter with the smallest golden key ever seen. Quote, it was half as long as the smallest pin you ever saw, in fact. Fair, for her part, knows exactly what to do. She climbs on top of one of the heavy silver chains and holds the little porter up to the wall, where he uses the golden key to open a secret door in the solid castle side. She enters the palace, which is really just one gigantic room and is the ultimate good night, sleep tight bedroom ever, with twinkling gold and gems set as stars in the ceiling. It's designed this way on purpose, of course, because in the middle of it, suspended from thick golden ropes, is a couch draped in all the colors of the rainbow, hint, hint, swaying its single occupant into an enchanted sleep. Fair recognizes this as Prince Rainbow, although how I don't know, as he's always appeared as, well, a rainbow and not a boy before. He's been sleeping ever since their last tearful conversation. Fair doesn't want to look too closely at her lover in case his face is not as pretty as his voice and words, which had, quote, won her heart. But she sure is miffed at the indifference in which she was received. Ouch, but also, girl, he is enchanted asleep. She doesn't get this memo and tells Prince Sleeping Beauty 20 times all about her toils and troubles in a loud, clear voice, but he keeps on sleeping. Figuring this insult warrants another urgent measure, she busts out the pomegranate, and out of each of the hundreds of seeds burst out a tiny violin, the irony, that float up to the ceiling and play beautifully together. Rather than sending Prince Rainbow further into sleep, this rouses him some, but not fully. His handsome eyes open slightly, and Fairer, upset that he's not recognizing her after all her questing for him, resorts not to kissing him, as many fairy tale princes seem to do when dealing with sleeping or dead girls, but to use her final resource, the crystal scent bottle. Out of this flies a little siren who silences the violin so that she can whisper sing into the prince's ear all about Fairer's ordeal and love for him. This seems counterintuitive, like what if Rainbow falls for the saucy siren voice ASMRing into his Bogdan's brain? It all works out though, because Prince Rainbow grows more and more awake and throws himself at Fairer's feet, overjoyed. At that same moment, the fancy French fairy tale trope shines in all its glory. As Prince Rainbow is reveling in Fairer, the walls of the room expand out, and a huge golden throne bedecked with jewels materializes, and a huge court assembles in the room. Elegant carriages filled with fashionably dressed ladies pull up, one of whom is Prince Rainbow's mom. They hug, and she tells him that his dad has been dead for quite a few years now, and the fairy's anger was finally appeased so that he can return in peace to be king. Hang on, Mom, that's a lot all at once. Hi, son, love ya. Dad, who the fairies had beef with, is dead. You're king, come home. Through all of this, Prince Rainbow is only thinking of Fairer, who he thinks this newly materialized court of subjects will just love, despite her not having any status. He is about to introduce her when the three green and white sisters show up, telling everyone that Fairerthanafairy is in fact Princess Fairerthanafairy, so the marriage is a-okay. This is exactly what happens in the older Beauty and the Beast fairy tales. These lovers get married in the capital without delay and are hence known as King Rainbow and his queen, Fairerthanafairy. The end. But what about Fairer's poor parents? She was an only child and was stolen from them, and I guess no one really is concerned with them because they are simply mortals, and this is high fairy court stuff. I kind of feel bad. All this because of an ill-inspired name. Sheesh. This was Fairerthanafairy, and it's kind of one of my favorite fairy court tales. There's drama. Is the prince catfishing her? He could be anyone. He's just a voice in scattered sunlight after all. There's turning tropes on their head. She's saving her prince. And there are little nods to mythology with the myrtle, pomegranates, etc. Of course, this fairy tale, Fairerthanafairy, is not the only tale in which the lady saves her lover. There are quite a lot, and yes, I am going to cover as many as I can, so stick around and subscribe if these twisted fairy tales and creepy origins are your tea and biscuits. Now, there is an older version of this fairy tale with the same name from the 1600s by Mademoiselle de la Force. In this tale, Fairer is not the only child. In fact, her father has many children already, and perhaps not all legitimate. But regardless, the courtiers, in an effort to ingratiate themselves with the royals, name this newest baby Fairerthanafairy. You'll know by now that this makes the fairies irate, and they hatch a wicked plot to make the princess pay for being so beautiful and so, beautifully named. But that story is completely different than this one, and heck yeah, it's stewing in the cauldron, but let me know your favorite parts of this fairy tale in the comments below. And also what other creepy stories and tales you'd like me to cover on this channel. Thank you, friends and fiends, for tuning into this twisted tale. Subscribe for the next weird story, which is hatching quite soon. Goodbye!